What's going on, Falcon fan? This is your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video, and it's game week. We are 6 days away from the start of the 2025 season. Actually, Thursday is the first game of the season, and I think that's those Dallas Cowboys going up against those Philadelphia Eagles. So, really, we like 3 days away. However, for our Atlanta Falcons, we are 6 days away when the Atlanta Falcons host division champs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, over there with Baker Mayfield and gang coming soon, and we try to get this season off on the right start. The players was back; they're back in routine. They was back in practice today. Of course, they have tomorrow off, and then Wednesday they get into the game plan, and we off and rolling, right? So here we are. I wanted to come in today. Of course, guys, I do my keys to victory. They'll be on Wednesday night, so be on the lookout for that. But today we're going to talk about the expectations for our Atlanta Falcons going in 2025. Right, all the talking is done, man. Everything is done. The off season. I thought Atlanta Falcons had a really good off season. From the coaching staff changes to pre agencies they brought in, even though they did let a couple of those guys go. They did bring back Jordan Fuller though. But and then the draft, right? What they was able to do in the draft, the whole entire off season with the young quarterback and Michael Penix Jr. So I think Atlanta Falcons had a pretty good off season. Um, and it was a really good training camp. They found out a lot about their young guys. My last video, you talk about the youth movement in Atlanta Falcons is this this 2025 season. So what are the expectations for these guys? And that's what we're going to talk about today. I got like 4 topics I want to bring up. And if you guys got any more topics that you think I should be, mentioning for the expectations for this team, just let me know. But we're going to get into those expectations today. And with that being said, if you have not already, go ahead and please subscribe to the channel. Please hit that notification bell so you know I drop another video. Please hit the like button so I know you guys out here that I talk about. Then please share my video throughout the YouTube universe so more people can come hear me talk about. That's right, these Atlanta Falcons. So let's get into the topic today. Like I said, the first topic today and the first expectations that we all want to have, and that is the Atlanta Falcons getting to the playoffs. Right? That's definitely our first expectation for this team. We want to see these guys back in the playoff. The last time Atlanta Falcons was in the playoff was in 2017. Yes, that's the season after their Super Bowl appearance. Um, and they got back to the divisional round, right? And they was just a Julio getting his toes down in the end zone for actually going back to the NFC Championship game. So, 2017, that's what 8 years ago. It's a long time. The Atlanta Falcons have not been in the playoffs. So the first expectation for this team is for this team to finally get an expectation. I mean, get into the playoffs. They have the talent on this team to do it, right? The division is not as one of those difficult divisions where each another team is so more dominant than them, and that they cannot compete. They definitely they've proven that over the last 2 seasons, where go down to the final games of the season, they still are in it, and that's where they find themselves at this year. They got to be able to get into the playoffs. And I don't even care if they win the division. Definitely, that's the easiest path to get in by winning the NFC South. But if you can't get in, by winning your division, get in the wild card. They got 7 wild card spots. I mean, 7 spots for get into the NFC Championship game, get into the playoffs, get into the tournament. That's what you want. So that's need to be an Atlanta Falcons focus this year. Um, and then if they go to our prediction, the 11 to 12 wins that a lot of us is predicting those guys to get, I don't see a reason why that won't be good enough for them to get in the playoffs. So, but the drought has to end. Um, Terry Fontenot, he's okay, general manager. I'm not saying he's a superstar, Jim, but his tenure here has just been, you know, just right up on the 500. Every year he's here. Even last year, 89. Um, The first three seasons we was 7-10. Finally got to 8 and 9 season, but still was up under 500. So he haven't seen a successful run since in his tenure here, right? Raheem Morris coming in, kind of inherit some of Arthur Smith's team. So this year is truly his, the team he put together. If you look at about the moves they made, the decision they made, especially look at the 53-man roster. So it's on him this year. I think we got a good, solid coaching staff. One thing that a lot of people was talking about, a lot of these positions that these guys are coaching in, they actually played in those positions. Look at Jerry Gray, he played in defensive backfield. Jeff Albrecht played linebacker, played on the defensive side of the ball. The quarterback coaches played quarterback. You know, Look at Zach Robinson played quarterback. So they kind of understand that they understand the shoes that some of these guys are getting in. So when they go out there and they tell them what they need to do, you know, they guys kind of listen to that. So that's good, right? So that's what we hoping to see. The coaching staff bring these young guys along. I talked about the youth movement that Atlanta Falcons have going on this year. So we're going to see that, right? We're going to see a lot of young guys play this year, on both sides of the ball, right? We got some veterans, so-called veterans, but if you look at some of those guys, they're still young. Guys like Bijan, Drake, Kyle, all those guys are still young, right? Only things that's really good and solid is our offensive line. We know we have some issues at the right tackle position, but I think it's going to be fine because if you look at all the other guys that's that's on that offensive line, the stability is there. Even though we do have a new center, but Ron Newsel actually started 8 games for the Atlanta Falcons. So, looking at that, um, you know, having Christian Lindstrom, all pro right guard over there, whoever is on that right tackle spot is going to be in good hands. So, I know a lot of fan base, a lot of the fan base is a little worried about the right tackle position, but I think it's going to be fine. Elijah Wilkinson has started, you know, lots of games in the NFL. He actually played right tackle. If you go back to when he was with the Denver Broncos, he played some in Chicago as well. Now he came to Atlanta. They did move him to guard, but that's what you want. You want a offensive lineman that's going to be a backup, to be versatile like that, to be able to play some guard and some tackle. So Elijah Wilkinson, I think, is going to be fine. They did bring in Mike Jarrell as well. You know, uber athlete. If you go look at his athletic scores when he came out of school a couple of years ago, it was like 9.65, right? So this guy's real athletic, strong. You know, just got to get the technique down. About playing offensive lineman, it's all about your technical skills and stuff like that. It's not about your strength and stuff like that. It's all about your technique. Yeah, you got some of the best athletes on the world coming off the edge, right? And they love going on the quarterback blind side. So that right tackle is going to be, something to look out for this year. It's not like Caden McGarry was, one of the best, pass protectors in the world anyway. He was an outstanding run blocker. So that's the question we need to find out about that right tackle spot if we're going to be able to continue to be dominant in the run game, running to the right side, like that dynamic duo we had with Caleb McGarry and Chris Lindstrom. So that's one of the things that we definitely need to find out. But when in all of that, guys, the first expectation for us on the Falcons is to try to make the playoffs. And the easiest route is to win the division in a fairly, like I said, not a hard division, right? You got Tampa Bay, who's won it the last 4 seasons, but we beat Tampa Bay twice last year. If we started the first 9 games 6-3, if we don't lose, 6 of our last 8 games, we were in the playoffs last year. We win NFC South, we hosting the playoff game, so on, so on, so on. So that's what we gotta look at. But this is a new season. It's not about division. It's any way you get in, right? You just got to get in the tournament. If you're able to get in the tournament, that's where things will pay off for these Atlanta Falcons. So the first key for the Atlanta Falcons is, my expectations is for those guys to get in the playoffs. That's just that simple. If we can do that, that's where, that's a win for the Atlanta Falcons this season. I'm not calling Super Bowl. I don't think this team is ready for the Super Bowl, right? However, you get in the tournament, you never know what happened, right? We've seen the New York Giants do it twice. start off at the 6th seed, go all the way to the Super Bowl. So you never know what's going to happen once you get in the tournament, right? Injuries, all kind of crazy. Look at Joe Flacco run in his Super Bowl year, right? The guy played like a Hall of Famer that Super Bowl run. 11 touchdowns, no interceptions in that run that he had, with the Baltimore Ravens when they successfully beat the San Francisco 49ers in New Orleans. So, you just got to get in the tournament. So it don't matter, how you get there, just get there. So that's the expectation for the Atlanta Falcons this year, right? I don't think Raheem Morris is on the hot seat. I think, the fact that this is just the second season, and in my opinion, this is really his first season as his team kind of inherited the team from, Arthur Smith, but this is the team. This is his team, right? The youth, like I said, the youth movement that they decided to go with, by signing Morgan Fox in free agency, but then letting him go and having all the youth there, right? Only guy we got over 30 on that defensive front is David Amenyata, right? Leonard Floyd is another guy, but he's on the outside. But so between those two guys, those are old heads on the team. Everybody else is young. So let's see, can this youth, the movement of the Atlanta Falcons, can actually get into the playoffs this year. We got a guest in here, Cowboys, one of those Cowboy fans, Mr. Eddie, and he says, when you inherit a team, it's yours from day one. Ricondo, okay. Yep, it don't matter. Regardless of the players, there is the coach's job to figure out how to use those players. That is correct. However, when you want to play a certain way, sometimes you can't play your way. You have to utilize your guys' talent. I agree with that 100%. But when you coming in, you build a team at your vision, how you think you want your team to play, and sometimes you just don't have those guys there. This year, I believe that Raheem Morris does have the guys he wants, and we're going to find out. Eddie says the right tackle for the Falcons is the blind side for MP. Yeah, yes, it's the blind side, but like I said, a lot of shotgun. It's not like the Atlanta Falcons a lot of coming up on the center, turning his back in the play action. It's more of, they do a lot in the pistol, they do a lot in the shotgun. So it's not, I say it's more, 40-60, where you're gonna have to worry about that blind side. Because you can see a little bit out peripheral when you're playing in the shotgun, like I said, in the pistol. So you can see, so it's not as blind as you would think. But you're right, it is the blind side. So I'm not going to, discredit, anybody thinking about, the right side of the right tackle is going to be an issue for the Atlanta Falcons, because we are kind of nervous about that, and we got to see how it panned out, right? That's where we're at with it. So playoffs, first expectations. All right, let's go to the next point here, guys. The next point is pass rush, right? And the expectations this year is for the Atlanta Falcons to have a really good pass rush this year. That's the expectations, right? We keep talking about it, and it's sad that we got to keep going back to John Abraham, right? The last pass rusher that Atlanta Falcons had. Yes, we did have one guy that's had over 15 and a half sacks one season. That's the Super Bowl season. That was Vic Beasley, right? But that probably was an anomaly more than anything, because he couldn't, duplicate that again. So, but John Abraham was the last guy that Atlanta Falcons had that was a pretty good pass rush. But I'm not looking for one guy. When I talk about the pass rush, I'm talking about as a unit, right? And we need to be able to, fix this pass rush. Now, the Atlanta Falcons, let's put this in perspective, guys. Atlanta Falcons had 10 sacks going into week 12 last year. Week 11, week 12. Don't quote me on that, but it was late in the season. The Atlanta Falcons had 10 sacks. They end up with 30. I don't ask me how. They end up with 30 sacks, but they turned it on after the bye week. And it seems like Raheem Morris might have, had to put his hand a little bit more in the play calling after that. But they was able to start to produce more sacks. towards that after that bye week. So it turned out to be better for them in the, in the long run. But the thing about the pass rush, going out and spending a lot of draft capital in the first round on Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. Um, that's where it at, right? We talk about both of those guys. Um, and James Pierce had an outstanding training camp, had an outstanding preseason. The jury's still out on Jalen Walker because he didn't participate a lot because he was, hampering, some lower extremity injuries and stuff like that. They're trying to be really precautious with him for he'll be ready for week one, which Raheem Morris said he will. If you listen to his interview day, say he will be ready to go. So looking forward to see what Jalen Walker going to be able to do. But the draft capital that those guys used in the first round on the edge, which is a need, right, for the Atlanta Falcons. But the guy I'm really thinking about that should really, really bring it home this year, and that's Armor Ebiketie, guy that's going into his fourth season and his contract year. He flashed as well during the preseason and has been really looking good. So between Armor Ebiketie, the other veteran there, Leonard Floyd, who's Mr. Consistent himself, averaging 8 to 10 sacks a season in the last eight seasons. A guy like him could bring along those young guys and James Pierce Jr. and Jalen Walker. But Armor Ebiketie is the guy that we want to see how well he does. Well, we want to see because you look at, I talk about that bye week, right? And after that bye week, Armor Ebiketie was the guy that really started to put the pressure on the QB, right? He's the one that when you go back and look at that, and he even mentioned that's something that he wants to do. He wants to be able to, pick up what he left off the end of the season last year. And if he can do that, this first game against a really, really good quarterback in Baker Mayfield, a guy just a winner, man. That's just what Baker Mayfield is. This is a winner. And just put pressure on him, make him get off his spot, be able to throw some errant throws. That's what we want to see from Baker Mayfield. And that's what I'm talking about when we're looking at the this pass rush. So I expect, when we talk about expectations for 2025, I expect the Atlanta Falcon pass rush to be really, really good this year. That's just expectations, right? Um, that's what we want to see, right? I think guys that we gotta have to look out for. I mentioned Armor Ebiketie. I think Brandon Dorless, his ability to rush the passer from that defensive end position. And if you go look at what he was able to do at the University of Oregon, he was really successful doing that. So I believe a guy like Brandon Dorless is going to have played a major role in that as well. Especially with this new attack style defense that they're utilizing, getting up the field. And that's one of the things we definitely got to see. So pass rush, my expectations for the Atlanta Falcons to have a really good pass rush this year. And because they put the investments in to do it this year. In the past, they did not do this, right? This was the first time we can actually say the Atlanta Falcons took investment. They really invested in this pass rush, trying to fix it, right? They brought in Leonard Floyd in free agency. They went out and spent 2 first-round picks on two young rookies, right? And then they was able to implement a new kind of style defense where they're getting up and they're going on the way to get the quarterback. That's what you want to see, right? So, one of Nate Ali old saying is just going to the dark room. We're going to see if it's going to work for these guys this year. But I expect, and I hope you guys are with me on this, expect the Atlanta Falcons to have a good, solid pass rush this year. That's what we want to see. So, number 2, pass rush. Number 1, playoffs. That's what we want to see, right? And guess what? They kind of go hand in hand. If the Atlanta Falcons can have a good, solid pass rush, I suspect they probably would make the playoffs. So let's see if we can be 2 for 2. All right. Let's go to the third point. And the third point is top 5 offense, right? So if you guys like me, right, we know what we have on the offense side of the ball, right? Let's just look at the facts. The first fact is that the Atlanta Falcons got 5 primetime games. Why you think they got 5 primetime games? It wasn't because they went out and got 2 pass rushers. No, it wasn't because they went out and got 2 pass rushers, right? Um, let's look at another fact. The Atlanta Falcons, 4 straight seasons, they drafted on the offense side of the ball. They drafted Kyle Pitts. They drafted Drake London. They drafted B. John Robinson. They drafted Michael Penix Jr. Right? 4 straight seasons, they drafted offensive players, all young guys, right? So the youth is there, right? So 5 primetime games because they want to see the young rookie quarterback throw the ball, right? They didn't put a lot of investments over the first 4 seasons of Terry Fontenot tenure here on the offense side of the ball. All young guys, all top 10 picks, mind you, right? And then last but not least, right? Number 4 overall pick, Kyle Pitts. B. John Robinson, who was third in all-purpose yards for running backs last year, right? Drake London, who had 100 receptions last year, 100 receptions last year, over 1,200 yards, right? And then Michael Penix Jr., who can touch every part of the field with that arm he has, right? A guy that showed some some level of brilliance in his 3 game start last year. A lot of stuff he needs to work on. He's not gonna be perfect. He's gonna make mistakes. No doubt about that. But you know, this team should have a top 5 offense. Last year, the Atlanta Falcons was top 10 in rushing and passing. Right? People don't know that. It was top 10 in rushing and passing. Right? Now most of that was with Kirk Cousins. I know. But the Atlanta Falcons had an opportunity to be really explosive this year. And then the front office knows it as well because they decided this offseason to really, on purpose, not address the offensive side of the ball at all. Let's just think about it. When they went to the NFL Combine, they only took defensive coaches to the NFL Combine. Only took defensive coaches to the NFL Combine. It was reported. They only took defensive coaches to the NFL Combine. In the draft, their first 4 picks was all defense. In free agency, mostly all their picks they picked up was defensive players, which tells you that the belief they have in this offense on the offensive side of the ball, right? But it got to come. It got to come together, guys. It can't be just because you can look on paper and say, yeah, they got this guy, got this guy, this guy, this guy, right? Top 5 offensive line right now could be iffy because Caleb McGarry's out of there. But at the same time, um, Michael Penix said it should be the best offense in the NFL, right? Well, I can tell you this much: they have the pieces. They really do. Bijan Robinson is electric, and then he's going to get better, right? If you start to watch towards the end of the season, then he's starting to really see the holes, right? And you can start to see when he's starting to set up his blocks even more. In his first season, and you go back to the first season, he was hitting the hole a little bit too fast, right? Last season, he got a little bit better, right? He got a little bit better. He started to pick his spots, and that's when you start to see him create those plays that we want to see. This year, his only main thing is he want to create more explosive plays, right? Create more explosive plays, and the way they're going to utilize Bijan out of the backfield as a pass catcher as well, it's going to be really interesting. So when you're looking at the top 5 offense, right? Like I said, should have a really good run game. We're going to try to get Kyle Pitts the ball. That should be the emphasis, right? Kyle Pitts is going to be featured this year, right? He was not featured last year. You guys recall during the offseason, I talked about he was the fifth guy, five, right, in targets last year. Five, right? He was behind Drake, Darnell, Ray, and Bijan. He was behind all those guys. He was the fifth most targeted guy in on the roster last year. I mean, we talking about a number 4 overall pick, and he was the fifth targeted player on his team last year, and that just can't happen. The mismatch he created, he creates, right. You got to be able to utilize that. You know, Eddie mentioned taking a guy and utilizing him the best of their abilities. This is where you take a guy that we coined the name unicorn when he first came out, right? Because he was a 6'6" tight end that could run a 4.4, right? He was supposed to be the next freak at that position. And he looked that way his first season. He really did. He had over 1,000 yards. You know, the first tight end to have over 1,000 yards since Mike Ditka, right? We talked about all this stuff, right? Now I think Brock Bowers probably already is looking like the new guy, the new unicorn there. But Kyle Pitts has the traits. Now he did have a sustained injury a couple of seasons ago, but I think that's gone. This is a big season here. This is a contract year for him. I talked about Armor Ebiketie. This is a contract year for Kyle Pitts as well. So I believe that when you looking at this offense, right, looking at all the pieces put together, right. Now, one thing was taught, and it's been talked about all offseason as well, the fact that Zach Robinson kind of didn't utilize the play action pass like he should have, right? Which is bad, right? He didn't use the play action pass like he should have, right? And that could have been because he had a guy coming off of Achilles tear, and he didn't want to put him in motion that day, right? As much, right? But it's no excuse for that. You got a guy that ran a 4.5 40, and Michael Penix Jr., who's an athlete, right? So you should be able to utilize the entire playbook. You be able to should get him out in space, be able to create plays, play action pass, and you want to use play action pass because our run game is so good. Now, a lot of people might look at Michael Penix and what he did at UW and think this is a passing team. This is a running team, right? This is a run team. Everything is predicated off the run game. So, with that being said, the play action pass got to be utilized. Now, if all this takes place, utilizing play action pass, being able to run the ball, consistency like we've been doing the last 4 seasons now, since Terry Fontenot been here, right? That play action pass is going to be huge, right? You'll be able to take advantage of the mismatches you got with Kyle Pitts, right? That's what you want to see, right? You're going to take the advantages you got Bijan out of the backfield as well. And then I always forget about him, but nobody should forget about Mr. Tyler Algier, right? Is another guy that probably could start on some NFL teams the way he run the ball. So this offense can really be special this year, guys. And I agree with Michael Penix, but I said at the same time, we don't need to talk about it. We need to get out and do it, right? Michael Penix is young. Let's be honest. He's going into his 4th start here on Sunday. That's his 4th start, just 4, right? So don't expect, to come out and flying on all cylinders. It's just not going to happen, right? It's NFL, man. This is the best of the best, right? We know Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles going to be aggressive against the young quarterback. I can see him sending a lot of pressure at Michael Penix, to try to rush him and get him off his spot and get his timing off and things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see, how Penix plays, right? Let's just see. I think the most important thing is the game plan that Zach Robinson, displays this year. You're right. The first game of the season last year, the game plan was just completely, utterly terrible, right? Way we came out against Pittsburgh, no play action at all. In the pistol most of the night, it just looked like it was robotic a little bit, right? And then they kind of changed it up, week 2 against the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football. But for the most part, that offense, that offense in that game one last year was bad, right? Let's not hope to see a repeat of that, because I can tell you this much: headlines. Falcons play bad week one. Maybe he should play the guys in preseason, right? That's the storyline, right? Raheem refuses to play guys because it's been all off season. Raheem will not play his guys in preseason, and they'll say Patrick Mahomes played, Joe Burrow played. They'll go down all the list of the great quarterbacks in the league that played. But Michael Penix didn't play. We're talking about a guy that only had 3 starts, right? Then he come out and throw and lay an egg on the first game of the season. That's all we're gonna hear. So they need to come out running, man. They need to come out being really good. Come out and try to do the things they need to do. Eddie says they will have some sort of pass rush, but those good those good rookies will go through some growing pains. Most definitely, 100%. You're right. You don't expect those guys. In on average, right? Just historically, first round pass rushers only average like 3 or 4 sacks a season. That's why I say it by committee. I don't expect James Pierce Jr. and Jalen Walker to come out and have 10 plus sacks apiece, something like that. I really don't. But I do expect guys like Katie and Leonard Floyd to be what they supposed to be, right? And those other guys, they can bring in 3 or 4 sacks apiece, right? That's how you get the pass rush going. And you get some interior pass rush, like guys, like I said, like from Brandon Dorless, from Root Roro, David Amiyata, right? Zach Harrison, those guys, you kind of utilize those guys as well to create pass rush from the interior, right? Because if those guys on the outside can, push the guys up in the pocket, you create sacks from the middle as well, right? And then if you can create, penetration of the middle, that's how you create the sacks on the outside. So it's a unison, right? I love the way Leonard Floyd explained it when he talked about pass rushes. You rush as a unit, right? Everybody want to be a dominant pass rusher, but you need to rush as a team. So when you're doing those stunts and stuff, you need to stay in your gaps and lanes, and so guys won't come out on the backside, right? Baker Mayfield is really good at that, so that's something we got to be real cognizant of and make sure that we don't, have any leaky lanes or anything like that. So good point about the young guys, but for the most part, I don't expect those young guys to like just be dominant. Now, if they do, we're going to be happy about that, right? But you're right, they're going to have some growing pains, man. These tackles are really, really good in NFL, and Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. is definitely about that. So, um, and the quarterbacks are even better. So, it's like a chess game, right? You playing the offensive coordinator, quarterback, and the offense line. You're a rookie, and you're trying to learn this thing on the fly. So, and guess what, guys? They're gonna get a lot of PT, right? That's what it's going to be all about. All right, guys. To get to my last topic today. Yes, I got another fantasy draft. This is my last one, though, right? It's my last one. I can't wait to be done with fantasy drafting this year. Um, I got 5 leagues, so I'm excited to be in all 5 of those leagues, and we're going to see what it's all about. But let's get to my last topic of the night. And the last topic is I expect a better kicking game this year. It's just that simple, man. We missed 12 kicks last year. 12, right? Young Wei Koo missed some kicks in preseason, which is, you don't want to see. Some was like 50 some yards, 50 plus yards. But now guys, man, kick 50 plus yards like it's nothing. You look at, Dallas kicker Arbery, man, that guy kicking 63-yard field goal. So, 50 some yard, it should be just as easy, especially you kicking in a dome, man. I'm sorry. Kicking in a dome, no wind, nothing to factor in. You got to get your mechanics down. So I expect the kicking game to be better this year. I really do. Young Wei Koo apparently had an injury last year, and probably after he kicked that kick against the Aints, man, and to win that game, if you guys recall that game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, right? Because that was a long field goal, and he probably tore something in trying to kick that far, but He was not good last year. It was not, man. And he's lucky. Raheem, loyalty, right? Sometimes loyalty gets you fired. Raheem, I just want you to know that. But I think Koo deservedly so. He beat out Lenny Craig, for the kicker position in the Atlanta Falcons, and he has tenure with Raheem, so Raheem trusts him. So but if you listen to the number of kicks that they had, um, in the competition, Cool. He honestly beat him out. So I'm not too surprised about you know um Cool being the kicker, but we can't have missed 12 field goals, man. And I can count at least 3 games that the Atlanta Falcons lost at the end because we missed field goals. Right? You go back to the New Orleans game in New Orleans, the game I was at. He missed 3 kicks in that game. We lost by 6 points. He missed 3 kicks. Right? Um, Now the Commanders game, he wasn't in that game, right? But the guy that they brought in, it was a 54-yard field goal, and it was straight as it could be, but it was like 10 yards short, right? Right. So his leg just wasn't strong enough to get there. So that's the kind of things you got to have your kicking game. And people, this is one thing, a lot of people don't really look at when they talk about wins and losses in NFL. And special teams is really important, man. It is. I mean, if you go back to that, talk about that Aints game, right? We got a muff um, punt return for a touchdown in that game, right? And we got a field goal made over 50 some yards in that game. 2 special teams plays, and the reason we won that game, right? Go back to the second game we played against the Aints, right? And we missed 3 field goals. It's just special teams is really important. That's why when I do my keys to victory every Wednesday, you have to throw the special teams in there, right? Now they went out and got Jamal Agnew, right? Went out and got Jamal Agnew. And my lights went out. When they got Jamal Agnew, and let's see if he's going to be able to deliver this year, right? As a returner, because we definitely need to see if Jamal Agnew going to be able to return this year. But special teams, the kicking game. And I'm talking about, yes, I'm not just talking about the field goal. I'm talking about the kickoff return and punt return as well, and kickoff and punt coverage. So we need to be better in the kicking game, right? Marquise Williams is a pretty good special teams coach, but we need to be able to make sure that special team is not the reason we lose in games. It's just that simple. Just that simple. Right? Well, there you have it, guys. Those are my 4 expectations. So many more. And I definitely want to hear from you guys. If you got any more expectations for the Atlanta Falcons 2025, please put them in the chat. Please let me know. We'll come back and talk about those. Look out for me on Wednesday night for my keys to victory for the first game of the season for the Atlanta Falcons. And I'm ready. I know you guys are excited, just like I'm excited. Eddie says, what do you think he says? Ricondo, you look like Raheem with the lights off. Yeah, man. Yeah, my freaking thing went out, so I'm about to get off anyway. But let me know what you guys think about this season, man. Also, tomorrow I will be on a podcast with some other Falcons content creators. So come in. We're gonna do a big show about just the start of the kickoff of the season. So tune in for that as well. Well, on Wednesday I'll be back for the Keys victory, and let's see can Atlanta Falcons start this season off 1-0, right? This is your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video. Peace.